In the process of wealth creation, tax on income remains one of the biggest hindrances in any person's personal portfolio and cost on their household. Now, we know locally the most effective way to address this is through retirement fund contributions. These can be either to a company-sponsored pension or provident fund or a retirement annuity that an individual can take out in their personal capacity. Now, contributions made towards a company-sponsored pension or provident fund are made before tax is taken into account. However, retirement fund or retirement annuity contributions are generally made as an after-tax deduction, i.e. somebody's earned their salary and thereafter makes the contribution. Today we're going to look at some of the advantages or some of the techniques one can use to just step up your savings simply by restructuring how and when these retirement fund contributions are made. So with me today we've got Hannah, and we're going to take you through an example just to show some of the figures behind these options.
Today we're going to look at an investor who earns 40,000 Rand each month, and they pay tax on that 40,000 Rand, and they take their after-tax income and they contribute 5,000 Rand towards a retirement annuity. So therefore their net take-home pay after the contribution is 27,000 Rand. So a total of 60,000 Rand is going into the investor's retirement annuity, and the next tax year they'll receive a tax break of roughly 18,000 Rand. The drawback of that is that the 18,000 Rand would only be able to be invested maybe back into the client's retirement annuity in the next tax year.
So I suppose then one of the options is to look at how do we work that round, because although they're getting the tax refund and they're reinvesting, are there alternatives in terms of making that contribution in totality? So it's about 78,500 that the investors put in, but over 2 tax years. So one of the ways we could look at doing is if we had to swing it around and make it a pre-tax deduction, right? So in that instance, we know this investor is happy to commit 5,000 Rand out of their pocket, essentially. So they're happy to be left with about 27,000 Rand at the end of the month. So if we make it a pre-tax deduction, then we can use the tax saving up front. Now all of a sudden they're saving a little over 7,000 Rand a month because they're only being taxed on the 32,000, right?
Exactly. So essentially, instead of paying SARS an additional amount of tax, you're actually just putting that money into your retirement annuity, and more is going into your retirement annuity. So roughly 87,000 Rand is actually going into the retirement annuity. Compared to the 78,000 Rand, that's roughly 10% more if you make the contribution before tax.
By getting it in the first year, you're also getting market growth for sort of an extra 12 to 18 months, depending on sort of where along the lines you're getting that contribution in, as opposed to waiting for the next tax year and only then adding in the lump sum. Okay, so I guess, Hannah, these figures we've looked at can appear quite nominal, but over a long period of time, they will certainly add up. By gearing up your savings, by not contributing money into the tax pool, rather your own retirement fund, not only are you saving tax and increasing your contributions, but you're giving yourself far more sort of market exposure, time for your money to grow over the long term. And of course, those of us that have got pension and provident funds, one of the options is to consider making higher contributions to those. I suppose the biggest challenge is always going to be to ask your employer to make such a pre-tax deduction, and that's going to be largely dependent on their payroll processes, right? There's nothing illegal about asking for a pre-tax deduction.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to look at your taxable income, see what RA contributions you can make and what tax you can save each year.